There's nothing new in the way of economic data last night, and share markets really just continued to fret about global growth or concerns about global growth. And we saw the major share markets remaining in negative territory. In that environment, we actually saw the New Zealand dollar perk up a little bit, which is not what usually happens when investors are concerned about global growth, but we recovered a little bit of ground against the US dollar. We're slightly up on yesterday morning's levels. Also recovering some ground was the Australian dollar. Now yesterday morning the Australian dollar really did take a little bit of a slide against the US dollar, and that was based on the uncertainty from their hung parliament. Now, nothing's been clarified on that front. It's going to take days or weeks to clarify exactly what's happening in the Aussie election. But the Australian dollar did recover through the day yesterday. And likewise, the Aussie share market, rather than taking the dumping that some people had predicted, actually ended the day flat. So despite the fact that we all talk about financial markets hating uncertainty, markets seem to take it all in its stride yesterday when it comes to the Australian dollar and Australian shares. One of the things we haven't talked about for a little while is the troubles up in some of the fiscally challenged areas in Eurozone. But just to remind us that those troubles aren't all over quite yet. There are a couple of negative stories circulating about the Irish banking system last night. One story was discussing the transfer of assets from one of the banks to the National Asset Management Agency, which is where banks have been transferring some of their troubled assets, and those were transferred over at a fairly heavy discount according to the story. Another story was talking about second quarter mortgage lending, and the levels are down significantly on year-ago levels by around 40% for the second quarter. Now, we talk about our slowdown in the housing market here, but it really pales in comparison to some of the troubles that they're seeing in the housing markets in the Northern Hemisphere. It's been a pretty quiet start to the week on the data front. There are a number of New Zealand companies reporting at the moment, which is keeping investors interested. But we do get the Reserve Bank's survey of expectations today. Now, within that survey, we closely watch the inflation expectations, but we also get other indicators, and that'll be keenly watched this afternoon as a check on how the economy's tracking. Elsewhere, we get the US housing market data today, with existing home sales data out tonight, and new home sales are out tomorrow night. So that'll give us another health check on the state of the US housing market. Elsewhere, there's a couple of activity indexes out of the states, but it's a pretty quiet start to the week on the data front. So most attention will be on those share markets to see if investor appetite for risk can improve a little bit. It's been a pretty weak appetite for risk over the last couple of days.